Sounds like he want to do one with 50 Cent. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like Jim.
Nah, I don't want to do nothing with that sucker. You heard? Leave him out the conversation.
Jimmy popping all that bullshit. I be seeing you, Jimmy, talking about we Gucci boo boo here in the Gucci store. Talking about we Gucci boo boo. Them like King was going fuck. Jimmy like Marita Monero.
Who is Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's not like no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his fan.
Jay did the remix. It was the biggest alley-oop he could do for me. I understood a lot about music, and at that time, people were looking at the wrong way, and I was looking at the right.
50 Cent just came for Jim Jones hard after Jim dissed Nas. And to make things even messier, 50 dropped some rare footage showing Jim turning on Jay-Z. 1 minute Jim was calling Jay soft. The next, he's begging for a Roc Nation deal like nothing ever happened. Now look, everyone knows 50's never been cool with Jim or Jay, but he does respect Nas. So when Jim popped off recently saying he's better than Nas and that he made Nas go viral again, 50 wasn't having it. He took that straight to the chest. But what 50 exposed wasn't just about Jim shading Nas. It was a spotlight on Jim's long history of switching up and playing both sides. He's been doing this for years. One day, he's throwing shots. The next, he's backtracking like nothing happened. And when it comes to Jay-Z, man, it's been a whole circus. Jim spent over 10 years clowning Jay-Z, even laid hands on one of Jay's top execs. But the second he needed a deal, boom. He's out here calling Jay a hero and begging for that Roc Nation stamp like the beef never happened. So 50's using all this drama to remind the world. Jim's got no real loyalty, no clear position, and definitely no respect for the culture he claims to ride for. But that's just the beginning. Jim's weak shot at Nas didn't just fall flat. It blew up in his face. It opened the door for people like 50 to dig up all the receipts and expose how shaky Jim's been all along. We're about to break it all down. How Jim went from trash-talking Jay to straight-up bowing down. 50 Cent's not the type to stay quiet when fake moves are being made. And now he's putting Jim Jones on blast as Jay-Z's lapdog after that wild Nas disrespect. Jim's constant flip-flopping ain't going unnoticed anymore. In case you missed the madness, Jim Jones really had the nerve to say he's better than Nas. He even clashed with Shannon Sharpe, talking about how he could run circles around Nas in the booth. Wild, right? Jim went all in, saying folks are just fanning over Nas lately and claiming that he's the reason Nas is relevant again. For the first time since that legendary beef with Jay-Z. But the crazy part? Instead of walking it back after catching heat from other rappers, Jim doubled down, straight up bragging like he's the one who put Nas back on the map. But once Jim mentioned Jay-Z, you already know 50 Cent had to jump into the chat. And 50 came prepared. He pulled out an old clip of Jim acting super hyped at Roc Nation headquarters, cheesing like it was Christmas. And the caption? Pure 50. Someone asked me if I have more enemies than friends. I thought about it and said, yes, poor me. I'm suffering from success. LOL. Now some people might say 50's just stirring the pot, but if you really know the backstory, that post hit different. Jim spent over a decade going at Jay-Z hard. Diss tracks, interviews, even real street drama. He even laid hands on one of Jay's top execs. Then out of nowhere, Jim flipped the script and started calling Jay a hero, begging to join Roc Nation like none of it ever happened. And that right there is the whole problem. Jim's shade toward Nas is blowing up in his face because it's dragging all this old dirt right back into the light. But wait, how did Jim really go from punching on Jay's team to kissing the ring at Roc Nation? So how did Jim go from throwing shots to begging Jay to sign him? Let's take it back to where the drama really started. In 2002, Cameron and Jim Jones were brought into Roc-A-Fella by Dame Dash. Jim even claimed Cam was promised a vice president role at Roc. But Jay-Z? He never made that official. Later that year, Cam told the source, I don't even know if I'ma take the role yet. Me and Dame are still talking about it, but I mean, I can have it. It's mine. But Jay wasn't on the same page. He told the source that nothing had been finalized and called the whole talk premature. So yeah, the tension was there early. Then things heated up even more. Jay recorded a remix of Cam and Jules Santana's hit Oh Boy, dropping a verse where he dissed Nas, but Cam and Jim weren't having it. They straight up refused to release the remix and later deleted Jay's verse completely. Cam explained that he wasn't about to let Jay use their record to handle his beef. That right there set the stage for a whole new war. Jim and Cam felt like Jay didn't respect them, and that's when the slick shots started flying. Jim began going at Jay in interviews and radio shows, painting him as some out-of-touch corporate figure who lost his street edge. Jim really leaned into that image, pushing the Dipset brand as raw, flashy, and street certified, while calling Jay buttoned up and business first. He even claimed the streets left Jay behind and tried to position Dipset as the real voice of the culture. This wasn't just beef, it was a power play, and Jim was ready to drag Jay at every turn, until he wasn't. At first, Jay-Z kept quiet. He didn't clap back at Jim Jones directly, but everybody knew there was tension brewing inside Roc-A-Fella. Then, in 2006, Jim dropped his solo hit We Fly High, and Ballin' took over the streets. It became a straight-up cultural moment. Now that Jim finally had a smash on his own, Jay-Z decided it was time to respond. He flipped Jim's own beat and dropped Brooklyn High. But don't get it twisted, this wasn't a salute. It was a full-on diss. Jay mocked everything. Jim's flow, his bars, even his ad-libs. The tone, cold, surgical, and straight-up disrespectful. And Jim? He fired right back with Beef Mix, using the same beat to take direct shots at Jay, calling him washed up, disconnected, and weak. But things didn't just stay on wax. This beef jumped into the streets. In 2008, Jim was caught on security cameras putting hands on someone in a Louis Vuitton store. Turns out the person he laid out was none other than Jay-Z's longtime A&R, Lenny Santiago. Jim got arrested and later pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault. Jay never made a public statement about the incident, but behind the scenes, folks knew what time it was. This had crossed the line. It wasn't just rap anymore. It was personal. Then, a few months later, Jay spoke to XXL about the state of rap. And yeah, he used the chance to shade Jim again. He said tracks like Jim's Nah, 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 Nah were ruining the culture, and even compared it to bubblegum rap like Soulja Boy. Jay said, I mean like Jim Jones, for example, and I don't mean this because we never see eye to eye. He made Nah, 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 Nah. What's the difference between Smiley Face and that? That song could have been called Smiley Face. So now Jay was getting strategic, throwing shots without naming names, but everybody knew who he was talking about. Jay might not have been in the streets anymore, but he still found ways to clown Jim without ever getting his hands dirty. After that public heat, the beef cooled off. Between 2010 and 2015, there were no diss tracks or scuffles, just silent smoke lingering in the air. Then, in 2015, Dipset tried to stir the pot again. They dropped a freestyle over Diddy's victory beat, and both Cam and Jim threw fresh shots at Jay-Z and Roc Nation. They mocked the whole brunch wave, called the label full of industry puppets, and even tossed in slick bars about Beyoncé. Cam rapped, "Having money don't make you a real one. You stepped on the court? You gonna play my game? Just take Shawty's advice and say my name." That was their way of trying to bait Jay back into battle. But by then, Jay-Z was living on a whole different level. Married to Beyoncé, billionaire status, buying art, launching Tidal, running Roc Nation Sports. He wasn't worried about Dipset's shade. He was too busy building empires. A clip even resurfaced of Jay comparing the whole thing to basketball. "I'm like Michael Jordan. Jim's the 8th guy on the bench, screaming at the MVP." Oof, that's when Jim started to get the picture. He realized all that yelling was just making him look bitter. So what did he do next? Exactly what 50 Cent is roasting him for now. Jim pulled a full 180 and started begging Jay to bring him in. And guess what? It worked. In February 2017, after over a decade of throwing shade, Jim officially signed with Roc Nation. And he didn't sign quietly either. He made a whole scene out of it. Jim didn't just quietly join Roc Nation. He showed up grinning from ear to ear, taking pics in the office like it was his first day of school. After 13 years of beefing, dissing, and even laying hands on one of Jay's people, he flipped the script completely, calling Jay his mentor and saying it was all love now. Wild, right? That's the exact moment 50 Cent is throwing back in his face, because it proves Jim's been flip-flopping for clout this whole time. One minute he's dissing legends like Nas. The next he's begging his old enemies for a seat at the table. No loyalty, no consistency, just moves based on whatever benefits him in the moment. So yeah, when 50 pulled out the receipts, he wasn't just being petty. He was exposing a pattern that runs deep. If you're loving the drama and want more of these wild hip-hop breakdowns, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Let us know whose side you're on. And we'll catch you on the next one.